This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, and I have some very special guests on the show today. I have Michi Hoyer, who you all know because he's been doing so many quality streams on the show. In addition to that, I have Mike Pitman. And what we have here are two team principals. Hello, Mike. How you doing today?
Hi, Sean. Cheers, man.
Good. And hi, Michi. Welcome back to the show.
Hello, everyone.
And
Nice to see you again.
these two guys are the principal owners or managers of two very established sim racing teams, Avid Chronic Racing with Michi Hoyer and VBN with Mike Pitman. And these two guys recently went to Nürburgring for the Blancpain series for the Sim Racing Expo together. They drove in the same car. They were friends before. And, well, what did that lead to, Michi?
Well, you probably have to start a little earlier than looking at the Sim Racing Expo. All of this stuff happened to start in July, when Mike and me had the first conversation about merging, combining forces, and get bigger and larger projects on. So we went into a little conversation. We got all managers involved, and literally, with about a week to go to Sim Racing Expo, we agreed on merging with VBMotorsports and Avid Chronic Racing to the big Avid Chronic Racing as it is right now. So we agreed on catching up with some little organizational stuff going on towards Sim Racing Expo at the Nürburgring. And yeah, we had quite a great weekend, many contacts, and yeah, I think Mike has also enjoyed this journey quite a lot there.
Yeah, you guys are having a good time with it. Now, I understand there was more to the story than just the two of you guys and the two teams hooking up.
Well, yeah, at the expo itself, you know, I can really say to everyone that actually get yourself down there on these events, because it's fantastic to meet all the sim racing guys, and you meet some great contacts as well, which is exactly what we did. We had our marketing manager Timo there as well. And between us, we had the merge already sort of signed and deal done at that stage, but you know, who knew what other exciting aspects were going to come out, and that's where we met our other friend here.
And that friend being Richard Schäfer of Zakspeed, if I'm not mistaken. Hello, Richard.
Hello, guys. How are you doing?
We're all doing well. So what started out as really kind of two teams became three teams joining forces and turning into sort of a super team.
Well, actually, calling it a super team is a bit taken a bit high, I think. All we did is just talk to some guys, signing some contracts, you know.
That's like saying we just drive a car. Like...
Yeah, and we just drive the car.
Yeah, so what basically happened was we as ACR were approaching Richard, who was a free driver or free agent at that point, and we were having conversations to them, and he was always telling me like there's another team, there might be another opportunity for them, and I was like eager to find out. And as he then said, well, they're probably a group of three as being too small for the Zakspeed team project. They wanted it, so we thought about, well, why not make this a win-win situation, because ACR was looking for some partner from real racing. The three guys around Richard were looking for an opportunity to drive in a highly advanced and successful team, and Zakspeed in fact was looking for an opportunity to grow an eSports team. So we throw everything in the bowl, and well, now there is this event coming up here we're talking about now.
And so with this event, let's bring up that contract signing, and you guys just kind of take me through. Now, when you have so many heads of state joining forces and so many drivers joining forces, how do you integrate everybody together? How do you come up with a common plan for everybody and make it so that it's a seamless transition and a benefit to everybody on the team?
Kind of like, because it was done back in July, we decided that we'd see out our respective seasons as our separate entities. That's only fair to the drivers as well that started out the season as they did. That sort of also then gave us, you know, 3-4 months to plan behind the scenes, sort things out as owners, particularly get ourselves organised, actually recruit other drivers as well, because although we've got quite a few between us, there was an awful lot more going on. Also, the talks with Zakspeed obviously aren't quick. There's a lot of things to go through with all these the minor details that you may not even consider. There's so much that has to get that. Some things will still be going forwards into the new year potentially, but the main bulk of things is there. It's great that we all share the same sort of vision. I think that was the key thing to get us all going in that. That sort of what brought VBM and Avid Chronic together anyway to start with was sort of the belief that actually eSports and sim racing is going somewhere. Back in July, you could see it moved on since then, let alone what it might be this time next year. We both share that vision, and actually knowing that it's changing that quickly, that probably on our own and as successful, but in the grand scheme of eSports, quite small teams, I suppose. Just when we were on our own, in our own markets, we were very big, but from a big perspective, we weren't. Bring us together, and we suddenly are a bit of a force within the bigger eSports market. You then throw Zakspeed into the equation as well, with their 50 years experience in real-world racing and success as well. And it's a massively, great melting pot of ideas, experience, and some real talent as well on the books, which, later down the line and probably into 2018, keep watching our pages. You'll find out about all the exciting additions to the team.
Mike, you mentioned, back when it was the small team and how I would imagine a lot of drivers came to you and it's a quick email or a informal virtual handshake and you have a deal. Here we are moving into the world of esports and big teams joining together to create, I'm going to keep calling it a super team, no offense. But, is that a sign of how sim racing in general is changing, that now we're at that point where we're talking about contracts and deals that take months and months and months to really put together? Here we are summarizing it in a matter of minutes, but this is months of work to pull this off.
Well, if you look at the development of esports during the last months or years, from my point of state, it's just I visited the SimRacing Expo where we both met, Michi and me. I visited it for the last 3 years, and the first year there were like let's say 5 simulators where people could drive on. Some random people running around, no one really knew what was going on. And the year after already, the number of people who visited this event has emerged really, really great. It were like thousands of people watching the live races there, which were going on iRacing. This year, I think there were like 10,000 people visiting the SimRacing Expo, and it's really, really great to see how esports is developing in SimRacing as well. And I think it's not too much to say that in the future there will be big events like they're already going on with like League of Legends or Counter-Strike with the ESL leagues and stuff like that.
Well, we've already seen some big esports teams coming over to sim racing from that side, as well as motorsport teams coming in. So I think sim racing as an esport has a dual aspect, which is above and beyond other. If you've got an esport like you say, like a Call of Duty or the Counter-Strike sort of thing, or League of Legends, there's not a real world, equivalent to that. You don't go out and find the military doing it, do you? So, and with this side, you've got the motorsport side as well as the the gamer that plays F1 2017 or Edge Remote. So that sort of element, we've got a huge marketplace out there that motorsport teams and the esports teams are really seeing now that actually, give it 12 months, we might actually be onto something massive here. And to put it bluntly, we wanted to be at the forefront of that. And the guys shared the vision there, and Zakspeed want that as well, and that's why all three entities sort of come together, and hopefully it'll be a fantastic experience. To be honest, I've had fun getting to this stage, let alone what it's going to be like when we actually start racing as ACR Zakspeed.
By the way, Mike, Rudy Van Buren says you look like a badass, just so you know. So that is
because I'm not stood next to him, he'd be like somewhere.
The king of all badasses, Rudy is. Okay, so what do you guys think the biggest advantage of joining forces is?
It's probably it's that combined, because actually trying to do it on your own, even if you've got the skill and because ultimately we're still you know, most people do this as a hobby. At the end of the day, it's not really, you know, it's not at that point yet where it's a paid job. It can't work that way yet. So if you're doing it as a hobby, there is a plateau that you hit because you run out of time or you run out of skills or whatever it may be. And so actually with, you know, having the amount of owners and the amount of staff and the amount of people that are on board that we've now got together which we've built up over the past few months, really, that's sort of the back of house team, I want to call it, rather than the driver aspect. That's really working well and smoothly. You know, the graphics department and all this sort of thing, which is I've never been part of something that has this many people together now. When you pulled, you know, because Avid Chronic had that, we had that. You put it all together, and we all got contacts that are all sort of playing in place as well. So it's that knowledge as well with our sim racing element. And I'm interested to see. We haven't fully started working with Zakspeed properly yet, getting into what they know and things like that. And that'll be sort of the next stage where we can teach them probably a bit about sim racing as well. No offense to yourself, as a driver, you know, you'd be much better than me. But you know, there'll be bits we can teach, but equally Zakspeed can teach us an awful lot as well. And they've got contacts as well in the motor racing world that we can utilise at the same time.
How about you, Richard? What about from your side? What do you think comes from joining forces? What do you think the biggest advantage is?
Well, I think, like we already said, if you're doing sim racing on your own, which was what I was doing the last few years, you can reach a point where you can say, well, I can race in some competitions and finish like in the top 5 or something like that, but that's it. There's nothing around it. And with joining in a team like ACR, we've got managers, we've got drivers, we've got people who build the setups and do like the whole racing stuff, which you can't concentrate on as a driver. Like when do you have to pit, which tires do you have to put on to get the optimal time out of the race, you know. All of that forces come together with this team, and I think we got like 70 people already joining the team, which is a huge amount in my opinion. And also merging with Zakspeed means that people with real-world experience can teach us something like how to get sponsors and stuff like that. We are going one step further. We're not only going to compete in online races, we want to approach the real world. We want to get out there, show the people who we are, and do some events here and there, you know. And that's the next biggest step, I think, which sim racing has to go in general, and we're doing it. Yeah.
Now, Michi, when looking at your Avid Chronic Racing with such a sizable fleet of drivers, how do you divide them up? How do you and does this change the attack of Avid Chronic Racing? Like, you and I have talked a lot about FSR and how it's maybe the biggest Pride championship, but right now, until they get some major money behind it, it's not really at the same level as some of the new eSports that are emerging. And how does this change the direction, or does it even change the direction of Avid Chronic?
It will change the direction of Avid Chronic quite badly. As you said, we were a bunch of FSR runners, mainly focusing on FSR. And we were lucky that the McLaren World Fastest Gamer competition was held on R Factor 2, so we had just a tiny little things to do to enter that series. And right now we're running a very competitive spot of AOR F1 2017 races in the top split. I think we got 3 or 4 people there in contract, including the current championship leader, with Richard and his 3 colleagues, as well as Jack Heathley and Florian Hase. We are entering race room quite badly, and we're looking forward for massive amount of titles and race wins. And so from going from a little FSR team, a little squad racing in a specific branch, we're reaching out for success and winning races everywhere. And I think that was the point where Zakspeed got involved as well, because Zakspeed, as I said already, was looking for a possibility to grow esports team, because they knew exactly, like we do, where sim racing is going to come, where this esports topic is going to go, and they definitely want to be on it. And so the meetup with Richard, with ACR, and with Zakspeed together in the beginning of November at the Zakspeed facility really pulled that off. So we got a little bit of glance into what's going on the real racing, and we had a 3-4 hour conversation. And I will want really to thank Herman Muck, who's doing the marketing stuff of Zakspeed, and as well Peter Sakowski, being the CEO of Zakspeed. Really want to thank them as a team manager to getting the opportunity to work together with them. And yeah, I mean, we have the same mindset. Zakspeed is out for winning. Zakspeed always want to have the fastest car in the grid, always want to score the maximum points available. So do we. And so we have the same mindset, and all this cooperation is about is to be successful and to become one of the top-notch racing teams around the globe, either being in real life and as well as eSports.
That doesn't mean we're giving up on Formula Sim racing, though. That's key area of the business, as it were, and it's an area that we do very well. So it's an area that rFactor 2, particularly, I think even very recently, there's good signs that it might be moving in the right direction. So we will stick with that as well as branching out into these other areas. It is making sure to keep the core business that both teams ran very well on rFactor 2, and that's an area that we'll keep going.
Now, in the coming future, I can see sort of a dividing line or two sides of the sim racing future, but that you might have what is lucrative or pays a lot of money versus what might hold a lot of prestige and respect within the community. So as an example, if somebody was to win an FSR championship, everybody in sim racing knows this guy is like one of the best and he could probably win just about any competition. And not to name names, but I'll use the Abu Dhabi F1 2017 as an example, and Brandon Lee wins that, and we know he's a good quality sim racer, so, my hat's off to him for the win, but I don't think there's any comparing the pride or the respect victory of winning that compared to an FSR championship. That's my take on it. How do you guys think the future will divide up what's lucrative versus what is king of the hill, so to speak?
Again, I think that comes very much down to the whole eSports or motorsport element to it. If you're looking for people to come from a sim racing environment to race a car or help in a simulator, like Rudy did, rFactor element, it's much more realistic in that respect. If you're looking as a fan who maybe wants to watch a race, then maybe the whole backing of the money with the F1 side of stuff might be that way. I think at the moment, to be honest, we're probably hedging our bet as the until we see where the penny drops, as it were, as a lot of people are when they're talking. You can do, even before lots of money came in, we still had iRacing paying out decent amounts of money over the past few years. Some will argue differently now, but compared to what was going out, Vegas E-Race came in, that was our factor, and that was a silly amount of money. So who knows what will come up over the next 12 months. Hopefully somebody will back a big one of these, what I would more call a sim. Hopefully somebody will come in and back something along those lines, because I think there's a big element there that isn't tapped into at the moment. I don't think the prestige is there from the drivers from the history, but yeah, moving forwards, we saw a lot of people move over to iRacing because the money was there, and if the money is in Codemasters or whatever it may be, then maybe that's where more drivers will migrate to. I think there's still going to be the prestige in some of these other leagues and titles, like you say. I will never be able to put my name to being a Formula Sim Racing world champion. I can only wish, but the guys here might be able to. So at some stage in the future.
Now, today on the Daily Show, we did an article that Reuters had posted about F1 sports considering starting eSport teams, not just like the McLaren thing, but literally the Ferrari team in eSport. If you talk about Premier League or Bundesliga, I mean, I can't start a club tomorrow. Those clubs are franchises of the league, and they set the conditions of what a club is or isn't, or who is or isn't in. If Formula One takes over the ranks, or any professional teams that aren't the existing sim racings take over the teams, how do you think that's, I mean, and that is a possibility when they're looking at it from a money perspective. How do you think that'll change everything we know today in sim racing. Reuters, thank you, Tom. Sorry.
I think you just need to look at Bernie Ecclestone's history, and you know, what he managed to do and pull together, and ultimately where we are now is mainly down to, you know, thinking ahead and getting the rights together and pulling all the people together. I think the only thing that it kind of might be stopping sim racing kicking off as much of an esport is the fact we're all kind of split into different games. Most esports, you know, if you go to a CS:GO Live or the League of Legends, it's one game, one manufacturer. They own and organise everything. Whereas with this, we've got quite a few factions, and I don't know whether we need someone to pull that together. That might be the Sim Racing Federation potentially. I know they've got sort of ambitions of maybe that sort of element to them. They might be the ones to be able to do something like that, or it might be some rich billionaire that comes in and buys up all the rights or something. I don't know.
It could be that way. I mean, the stories I'm seeing allude to the fact that that's being considered by many, where you have some super corporations considering the esport world in general, but looking at sim racing as maybe the untapped area of it.
I'd agree. It definitely is. It's, you know.
Yeah. So Michi,
yeah,
how do you get your team? How do you make moves or changes? And we talked about marketing aspect, and maybe this is where Zakspeed comes in. But how do you get it so that Avid Chronic Racing is one of the teams on the invite list? So, because that's what I think is going to start. Here's my fear: is that these competitions have so much money and are so big that their invite list is going to be not necessarily made up of the earned rights of sim racing, but the perceived rights by what they want from a marketing perspective. How do you maintain the true hardcore sim racing element and at the same time go after things that might be more like WRC or Codemasters F1-2? And I'm not trying to take anything away from those games, but just from a purist sim standpoint, I don't think they hold up. But how do you maintain both? I mean, I'm assuming you want to maintain that view as a hardcore sim racing team, and at the same time be able to really tap into where the move for the future might be.
Well, you definitely have to see what the future is coming up with now. What we basically did now is forming a good base by merging VBM with ACR. That was the first step. The second step was getting the merge or the cooperation going with Zakspeed. So we're not going to be only their esports team and racing under their flag. We will also go to the track with them, go to events with them, be with a real racing team around there, get simulators in, do that event management together with them, show that we are some sort of a squad, a big team working together, despite we're still some sort of separate legally. Nevertheless, you definitely have to work, and it's like playing chess. You now have to see what developments going on in the sim racing market. As you said, all these competitions going on in F1 2017. They might not have been the best in terms of realism or whatever, but as you said, you really have to look at differently at it. You have to look where all the maybe the money goes, where all the prestige goes, where all the viewers go, because in the end, where all the viewers go, that will be the successful thing to be in. And at this point, and I think that's a change in real life as well, you're not only looking at how good is a racing driver as a racing team. Like currently, I think a famous Formula 1 team has to look after a specific type of driver in order to get the main sponsor happy. I think the one or other guy is sure or knows exactly what I'm talking about. So there is this aspect of marketability of a driver. Is he just fast? Is he just doing his races and doing his practice and nothing else? Or is he going fast and doing online practices, giving shows, being presented by anyone, or being present himself? I don't want to point at me, but some other drivers are doing quite a lot of live streaming. Cody Blanton from our team, Martin Stefanko will do. So it's all about being marketable, and that's a change you really have to accept, and you really have to understand and try to work with. And if you combine massive skill, massive amount of practice, professionalism, like as Richard said, we do have race engineers, we do have media people, all the stuff that the real Formula One team has, we have it as well. And all they are doing in real life, we do it on the computer. So in the end, you have all that. You have the professionalism and the professional environment to work with, and then you combine like skill, marketability, and everything of such kind, and then you will be invited to the one or other event. Just like look at Graham Carroll, maybe. He has done a lot of testing in real life cars. He has done a lot of shows in the UK, and he gets invited to Vegas E-Race. Well, he qualified for Vegas E-Race, but I think he got a wild card for World Fastest Gamer. I'm not sure, but anyway, you saw because of all his activity going on, he gains that right to be at a specific event, and so this development will go further and further, and it won't be only down being being a skilled driver, being a very talented one.
Well, and being able to market yourself, market your team, and you know, this leads into my next question. I'll direct to Richard, but you know, being a marketable individual is really important in real life, and I think it's going to prove that way in sim racing as well. Richard, you've seen it firsthand from real sport, motorsport. From my perspective, it seems like there's a decline in sponsorship dollars over the last decade in racing, and maybe not so much at the top team level, but when you look at the middle or just below that downward, it seems that it's drying up. Meanwhile, we're seeing sim racing money seems to be on the rise. Do you ever see some kind of a crossover point, or is it just a bang for the buck? You know, sim racing is cheaper to sponsor.
I have to say you're definitely right. Sponsorship money has decreased in motorsports over the last few years. That's what I'm seeing every day, or like every month when a race is held on the Nürburgring, because I'm living at the Nürburgring. There's a series called VLN. It's an endurance championship with 10 races all over the year, which go 4 hours, one race. And there are many classes, like GT3s are racing there, Cup Porsches, BMW M235i, and also cars that you could see on the street just as they are, just as they race on the track, and all cars racing together. It's a starting field of like 180 cars, and the percentage of the, let me say, cheaper cars has decreased over the last few years because no one has got money for it. Let's say a few years ago people could afford driving these VLN races also with Opel Astra, BMW 318i, cars that you wouldn't think are actually racing anywhere, but people could do that because people wanted to see these cars on track, and the money was there from sponsors because sponsors would pay for these cars to race. But nowadays it's like most of the money goes to the GT3 teams. Nismo, Audi, Porsche, Mercedes, BMW are taking place there and racing for themselves almost. And what I would definitely like to see is that if the money is decreasing from sponsors in real motorsport, is that they go the way we are going, and see that eSports is good as well, as good as real motorsport. Because if I'm looking at some of the DTM races today or Formula One races, some of them aren't really that exciting to watch because, well, there are like fights, but if someone drives into the other one, the car's damaged and they can't go on. And in sim racing, I have to say most of the races are way more exciting to watch than actual races which are held in real motorsports. And if sponsors are seeing it the way I do, they will definitely go and take some more money into the esports.
I agree. I agree with you. Okay, so Paul from the chat asked, and I think this is a great question. Michi, you and I have actually talked about this a little bit, but do you think for sim racing as an esport to grow and get popular, do the players, the drivers, do they need to become more characters? Do they need to have these like personas or images? And you know, I think here in America we have the WWF wrestling. You know, do they need these like fancy intros or nicknames in order to really make it more popular, or do you think it can be just straight up and you can go in and be I'm Michi Hoyer, and Michi, you're a little dry in personality, failure to smile. There you go, you little smile out of you. But no, but I mean, do you think that people are going to have to be, you know, over the top, flamboyant or something to really get that attention?
I don't think you have to be. I mean, Kimi Räikkönen isn't exactly flamboyant, shall we say? People love him. You know, it's again, though, it's still that element. If you want to be if you're looking to try and use sim racing as a way into motorsport, the motorsport teams want professionalism. They want that kind of. They want you to be a good driver. If you want to be an esports guy and you want viewers, then yeah, maybe it does help. You know, like you can do your WWF intro. You can do all that sort of stuff. You can have a nickname and your hashtag and all this sort of whatever you want to do. You know, team wear and stuff. Sell T-shirts on the weekend, that sort of stuff. But there's, why not? Good idea, Michi. Actually, we need to do that. There's so much more that can be done with it. I think ultimately, characters are good. You can't. It's boring if everyone's just a professional driver and does these sort of things. As long as it's in the right way and they're not, get a reputation like a Maldonado or something along those lines that may be just or not. It's one of those. It's still everyone knows that name though. Like for the time that certain people have been in racing, that name and will do for many years. Everyone likes underdogs as well and things, don't they? It's always a bit of soap opera on your telly is never a bad thing.
And it might require a little of both. I mean, I think of like the Visa Vegas, and you add on the podium, you add Ollie, Pakala, and Bono Hui, and they couldn't be more opposite when it comes to personality. And I think that actually played into the whole thing because, Bono being just so quiet and very strict in his attitude, and then Ollie's just like, popping champagne bottles, maybe, but I mean, maybe that's what we see in real life too. So maybe we just need to continue doing what we've always done, which is emulate the real sport.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got, like say, 70-odd members. We've got a good mix of professional guys and, good few jokers in the team as well. You need that for the atmosphere element. It's and it will come across to the viewers and the other competitors. And that's what keeps the team together as well for the longer term.
So now that the contracts have been signed and it's official and it's out there, what are the short-term and long-term plans for you guys?
Short term, enjoy a nice Christmas. I think that's number one. Nice New Year. But it doesn't mean we're not doing anything. We've got we're in a lot of driver talks currently for a lot of series as well. Seeing what you sort of get into the stage where it won't be long now before a lot of leagues sort of announce their series and what they're going to be running, which then means we need to quickly move on that. And at the same time, we've got a good few announcements for drivers that we've already got on the go. There's a few competitions that start now, early January as well, little things that are kicking in, so we'll be sort of competing in those elements. And it's knocking on doors for a bit of sponsorship as well at times and seeing what's out there and getting our name out there, getting people to know us and getting to know Zakspeed, really. That's sort of the next one as well. We've got to build up that working relationship over the next few months and couple of years and stuff, so why not start now?
Absolutely. And what about long term? I mean, how do you guys really, what are you guys going to be going after?
Well, looking at the long term is kind of been a bit difficult. I mean, if you would have changed the clock to 1 year earlier, you would have just had the first Vegas E-race going and you were like, oh, that was the first competition and let's see what's about to come. So now we had the Vegas E-race, we had McLaren's World Fastest Game, we had F1 2017, we have announcement of further stuff to come, and I think the World Fastest Gamer event is set for 5 years or something, so it's a mid to long term program. But anyway, all this activity is increasing right now and you can't really say what's the path to go right now. What I definitely can say though is that we're going to talk to specific people joining us. We're gonna make our name a big name in sim racing. We're gonna grow ACR Zakspeed as being one of the most successful and sophisticated sim racing teams around the globe. And then we will see where we end up. We definitely will reach out to more competitions. We will enter the real competitions, doing all the excitement around the globe as well. And from there on, we see like how things are evolving, and then probably we can set out a plan now. And if we go half a year later, you revise the plan completely, or in some parts, and you set out a new plan, and 1 year later you're gonna revise that plan again. At the current rate sim racing is developing, as you have already mentioned the International Sim Racing Federation, which is now being registered, and we're gonna have a talk about that as well in the few days coming. There's so many things going on, you can't really see where it's actually going at, and I think the development rate is so immense and so intensive. Your plan in the long term can change every few months.
Okay. A couple more questions, and then we'll bring things to an end. I'm going to get back to the whole esport mentality, because I just think next year is going to be very big for you guys and sim racing as a whole. And even when we talk long term, I think some short term plans will get thrown in all of our laps because of the way these competitions just kind of come out of nowhere. But thinking back to like the F1 2017, there was like sort of a controversial pass. I mean, I don't know if it was really that controversial, but it could have been. And when you look at Visa Vegas, and they had a little mishap there, and you had a substantial amount of money on the line. And I just read an article that iRacing is actually pulling their live stewards from the World Championship Series, but they haven't had any issues yet. As things progress, as things grow, how do you think sim racing is going to have to deal with policing itself in terms of rules? I mean, in real life, if you punch someone, you might kill them, and you might do that once in your lifetime of a career because you will have learned your lesson or maybe got your ass beat. But when it comes to things in sim racing, you could punch someone anytime you want, and if there's no live steward, you get the checkered flag. You get the $500,000 if it's Visa Vegas. How? And you brought up ISRF, International Sim Racing Federation. How do we deal with rules when money is at stake, not just pride or ego?
I quickly gonna have a short one about that. I think the live stewarding there is really important and really necessary. Like currently, FSR and many other racing leagues sort it out by having the race, having the incidents afterwards, get them 48 hours to now file incidents or file protests, and then you get revised. But anyway, if I got hit in lap 2 or something, get a broken suspension and lose like 3 or 4 tenths a lap over 70 laps, that's around, I don't know how many seconds or what kind of disadvantage I will have that by having that. What gets me a 5-second penalty or a 10-second penalty for the guy that crashed me at this rate? So probably having the penalty set immediately, like getting a drive-through that puts the driver that passed me that bad way back in 8 or 9 positions, and he will probably never get me again on the racetrack despite my damage going on there. Nevertheless, having live stewarding means a lot of personnel being involved, and I hope that is something ISRF can establish, as we want to give specific rules. We want to give the leagues a fair bucket of rules and systems to get a good league sport on, and yeah, that's from that point of view. But I think Mike was going to say something about that as well.
It was only going to be really that, like, most of the leagues and things at the moment do it post race because they kind of have to. Like you say, it's the manpower, it's the cost. If a league and a series wants to take it really seriously and put some money into it or put some big prizes, it needs to be run well as well, and that probably now involves some sort of live stewarding. The games as well have a small element in that quite a lot of these games, the in-game penalties aren't necessarily as you'd like all the time. So there's a little bit of element that needs fixing there maybe. Some of that's down to third-party content and stuff like that, but yeah, a lot of these games can work on that as well. But a general set of rules or a general idea from the International Sim Racing Federation would help everyone know the expectations that they should be racing at, even if it's not enforced live, I suppose.
And as far as the future goes in sim racing development and rules and just governing bodies when it comes to esport even, do you think that in the future, I mean, if we could just call it right now and say this is the way it should be, do you think this should be led by the existing, like, esport companies, which are all doing shooters and fighter games? They're not doing sim racing, or they're doing Rocket League or something along those lines. Or do you think it should be more like the FIA getting in and saying, no, this is a motorsport and it needs to be governed in such a way? Or should it be done from within, like through an ISRF or from the sim racing community itself, whether it be each independent sim declaring its own rules and way of being?
I think you have to start somewhere. In this case, it's ISRF. In another case, I think I heard that the FIA is going to host something. I mean, FIA and Formula 1 doing this official esports championship is a little hint to what it could be in the end. However, I do think especially FIA will be particularly interested in bringing up sim racing as an alternative form of racing. Because, let's face it, here in Germany we had a broadcaster for like 25 years on the same channel. Sunday 2 p.m. Central European time there was Formula 1 on, and currently there's been the discussion whether those guys are not able to afford the license and to get the TV rights to still broadcast this race, which then brings Formula 1, and that's a development throughout all sports. Like in Germany, the handball Bundesliga, it was in free TV last year, and there was like 60 games, which was quite enough. But this since this season, it's just 4 games being broadcasted in free TV. Any other matches, happily it's the full Bundesliga matches like in football, is being broadcasted on pay TV. But still, for the easy and for the common people, sport to watch becomes considerably difficult. So now I could see like formats like Formula 1, DTM, all move over to pay TV, which then gets the spots free to maybe host some racing events from sim racing in actual TV. In Finland, the FISRA has made it, that is the Finnish Association of Sim Racing, to broadcast an event hosted by them fully in their TV, and I think that's way to go. And looking at this development, FIA and all those associations, FIFA and whatever, they could really get hands on this and profitate from it, like set out an alternative thing which is official, which is officially supported, sponsored, hosted, and that definitely will get the audience in them.
And by the way, the Sim Racing Expo this year was broadcasted by Sport 1, which is a big German TV
Exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think the big thing there is making it accessible. If you get the FIA or the motorsport teams and the Formula 1 teams in it, I can't go and drive a Formula 1 car or work for Mercedes, but I can pick up a wheel in my house and get on a game and drive it, and that's where the interest is. I think that's where we all started out, and it's got to be accessible to the game, and I think that's why you do need elements of both. You do need that, a bit like you were saying, the entertainment guys. You do need the guys that know how to run an esports event, whether that's in a small hall or in a stadium filled with 70,000 people or whatever it was in China the other week. That sort of element is not easily run at all. So to have that sort of experience and people actually being able to watch and feel that they can be part of it is the big thing that I think is kind of getting lost a little bit in real motorsport at the moment. They are starting to try and claw that back a little bit more. But yeah, I think that's something that we've got as an esport, as sim racing, that we need to make sure we do hold on to, because that's one of our key pillars at the moment. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Richard, maybe you can answer this best, but how do you think the growth of sim racing and esport can actually help real life motorsport? Mike just touched upon an important part, as you have this fall off on fanship. A lot of it, I think, is awareness and the lack of ability to understand what it's like to be a driver. Do you think sim racing can actually help be part of the regrowth or rebuilding of real motorsport?
That's a good question. What I think is that sim racing will definitely focus more on the driver perspective than on all the other stuff coming through motorsports. Like if you visit the racetrack, there are thousands of people going through the pit lane, just watching the cars, watching the teams, and all those expensive stuff. And rarely people care about the drivers. And in sim racing, the main focus is on the driver, and I think this will definitely help the regrowth of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
If we find in a couple of years we've got a sim racer that is actually racing real motorsport somewhere, that will be everyone will jump on the bandwagon and see it as a, you know, I'm looking at you, Rudy, as somebody that might be able to. Or it might not be him; it could be anybody. But yeah, you know.
I think we'll see more and more of that, and I think we're going to see two different directions. I mean, I think of like the Gran Turismo Academy and how many incredible drivers it spawned, but then I see it from the other direction too, because the new young drivers have already been sim racing for 6 or 8 years, and then they get into the ranks of real life racing because they were karting and then maybe doing small single seater after that. And now they're making a name for themselves, and well, they've been sim racing on the side all along. We race against these people already. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, I obviously could talk to you guys forever. So let me give you a couple of softball questions just to kind of bring things to a close. And number one, with what you know of the next year, what is the single competition that you would like to win most next year? And I give that to all of you guys.
We'll have to see which competitions are going to be offered, I guess.
Of what we know, no.
Well, from my point of perspective, I'm one of the race room drivers of ACR, and race room had a big development in esports. There was the esports WTCC,
yep,
and the esports DTM, which was held this year, and I think this is going to be next year as well, and we definitely want to be up there, maybe reaching the top 3 or maybe even winning it.
Gosh, in the VTCC a few years ago, they even gave away a car, so I mean there's some stuff to be won there. How about you, Mike?
Well, I won't be driving, but to be honest, when I joined up with ACR, the thing that I would love to have got them was a Formula Sim Racing Championship, and I haven't managed to do that yet, so I'd love to help them try and do that one. But yeah, the race room element is a really exciting one. The viewers and the real licensing they have there is fantastic. And if you'd asked me a couple of months ago, I probably wouldn't have said F1 2017, but now I'm actually quite interested in it. I've picked up the game. It's actually something, from that is the reason why I've done it. So the guys there as well, we've got some great guys in that team as well that I think can be brilliant. It's all, all the stuff we're going to do is going to be on our YouTube and on our Twitch and all that sort of stuff regularly. So, if people want to catch up and they can see all the elements that we're going to be doing going forwards, they'll be the ways to capture it.
And you, Michi?
Well, being a full R-Factor 2 guy, I obviously hope to get another title in Formula Sim Racing. Like winning the ACE Championship last year for me was personal, a really satisfying moment, but you go on and you definitely want more, so I'm definitely reaching out for going to the championship in Formula Sim Racing World Championship Division. And I hope that this Virtual Endurance Championship team we also will have will be competing for the win in the LMP1 class there. I really hope we get a title there, and from then on I will definitely have a look at Formula E. There is nothing particular announced yet, but you can already see the development that there will be some competition going on the Formula E stuff. And well, as I said, World Fastest Gamer is a project for 5 years. I didn't make it just into the final of the first year, so maybe we can go further in the second year. So that will be the plan on my side.
Okay. I know we've been talking about your team getting together, but I'm sitting here with 3 incredible racers. The guys out here will kill me if I don't ask. So, Richard, I can see you have a club sport wheel with some kind of a mod thing going on. What's your equipment? What do you race on?
I'm actually racing on Fanatec, yeah, Club Sport version 2.5, wheelbase and pedals. The seat I'm sitting on was just I bought it off from eBay for like 70 euros and built my own gaming rig with some wood, and yeah, that's basically all you need. Yeah.
And is that the universal hub wheel? Is that what you're running on that Fanatic?
Yeah,
there?
yeah, exactly.
And what's that
Universal
across
GT hub.
the top? Is that top piece different, or is that just what they look like? I've never had one of those.
This thing you mean?
Yeah.
I actually don't know what they did there because it covers all the buttons. So if you have to recalibrate the wheel, it's just fucked up. Yeah, you have to get everything off to reach all the buttons you need to push. And,
Okay.
I don't know what they did there.
All right. Now, Mike, you said you're not racing. You have a setup. What do you run on?
I haven't raced for ages. I've still got a Driveforce GT somewhere kicking around.
All
Oh,
right.
I had that as well.
It was, you know, to be honest, it's a good standard wheel for the cost at the time. I think things have moved forward now, but you know, it's you won't see me driving it anytime. Well, not embarrassing myself anytime soon.
I used to tell people the best secret in sim racing was a DFGT wheel with a good set of pedals. Like, that is the quickest turning wheel I think I've ever used. Well, at least back in the day. I also used to think Porsche Unleashed was the greatest sim ever made. So, you know, my historic thoughts aren't always perfect. Michi, what about you? I think you upgraded recently. What are you running?
Yeah, I was running a G25 from Logitech for 7 years, but now the button started to... Yeah, that was the first thing, which got my mum mad for like consecutive days. The buttons now started to fail, and obviously the pedals had some spiking, so there was some upgrading necessary. And there was Black Friday, happily, so I got a G29. It's sticked with a Logitech. I was thinking about getting a Fanatec or something more advanced as well, but I would have started at the wheelbase, going on with the wheel, after then going on with the pedals, and being on a rolling chair, not a massive rig. If I would put a load cell and brake hard for turn 1 at Nürburgring, I would find myself back in the board there. So I got a G29. Reworked on the pedal, so took out the brake mod, clutched the brake with a I swapped the brake with a clutch, and I had like gray hairs all over the place until I got the pedals ready, but currently I'm happy I did it, and yeah, feeling comfortable on that G29 right now.
All right. You guys mind taking a minute to answer a couple more just generic sim questions?
Go for it.
All right.
I don't know how much help I'll be.
All right. So when I think of the esport competitions, when you went to Visa Vegas, everybody then had to jump into a Formula play seat with a Thrustmaster wheel. And I change gear every day here doing what I do for the show. And I do find there's a learning curve switching gear, especially if you're coming from, say, Fanatic Club Sport with a load cell pedal or a hydraulic pedal, and all of a sudden they throw a set of T300 pedals at you. Or T3PA pedals at you. How important to win those big competitions in person do you think it's going to be? In the case of McLaren, if you'd gone to the finals, you would have had to run on a G29. You grabbed the right wheel, Michi. But Richard, how hard do you think it would be to adapt in person at an event on top of dealing with the added pressure being at one of these events?
Well, my biggest problem with adapting due to the new Fanatec pedals was that the load cell is really, you have to push hard to get that braking done. Before the Fanatec, I drove a Driving Force GT as well as Mike, and the pedal is just as soft as you could push it down with your little finger, and this adaptation is the hardest thing to make. And if you're going from, like, let's say a load cell on the Fanatec to a Thrustmaster, I really don't know what they're using, but I guess it's not going to be as hard to push the braking pedal as here, so that adaptation is easier to make than the other way around. That's what I noticed. And also this is at my home at the Nürburgring. Under the week I'm studying 100 kilometers away from here, and there I still have my Driving Force GT, and if I'm practicing under the week, I'm driving that. So I basically have to adapt every week, and
We're gonna have to start a fan club or something, aren't we? Mailing list and everything.
Oh god.
Well, yeah. So if you really wanna be up there, really wanna win that Las Vegas E-race, you have to be able to adapt to new pedals. The wheel isn't that important in my opinion.
It's the pedals.
But it's definitely nice to have something like a Fanatec wheelbase, because it feels much better than the Logitech, in my opinion.
Singles, triples, or VR? What do you guys think?
Singles.
A question for me, it's single too, because triple screen just confuses me. But many people are running triple screen.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people run the triple screen, but actually we found in most of these big events they all go back to single screen.
Yep.
So maybe, you know, if you're going for that sort of thing, stick to small, you know, stick to one screen for now, because you'll be ready. It's one aspect you don't have to relearn again. Maybe we'll be VR one day.
So we're at the point where you'd have your elaborate rig with all your chosen gear, your direct drive wheel, your hydraulic pedals, triple screens, and then over there you better have a play seat with a G29 and a single monitor. Is that what we're saying? That's the future?
Yeah, that's exactly it, yeah.
It will definitely go two directions, I think. One will stay with a standard and cheap and easy and yeah, simple equipment, I would say, and the others go real. Like, I mean, there's this, you know, the sky's the limit. You have some bloody hydraulic, foot standing, free moving simulators going around where you can spend like 100,000 quid. So you will have all kind of sim racing rigs being around there. And I mean, it's not down to the rig whether you're gonna be fast or not. It's mostly being down to the setup, to your personal driving skill, and to your approach, and yeah, mental abilities, physical abilities, obviously when driving the direct drive, and pushing the load cells. But I don't think in the end that's the equipment making the difference.
Absolutely. All right. Last thing, then we'll bring it to an end. So I want to know just what your guys' favorite car and track combination to drive is. If you just had said, hey, today's the day, I'm just going to go back to my good old favorite. I'm going to be in blank at blank. What do you think?
Well, for me, it's definitely the Nürburgring Nordschleife with a BMW M3 E46. That's just a love that never ends.
Have you duplicated that in real life?
I was co-driver in a M3 CSL actually, and was really, really fun. Yeah.
And
Didn't have the opportunity to drive it on my own, but maybe in the future, who knows.
All right. How about you guys?
I was lent a Porsche 911 once for a week, and that was just awesome. Like, it's not the best car out there necessarily, but for me to actually have that for a week as your day-to-day car was incredible. And you know, for me, I always love Silverstone. Maybe it's a British thing. I don't know whether that's that. And it's probably not the most exciting track out there necessarily, but I don't know. It's one of those. I could do a whole Hamilton to the crowd thing. You're the best fans, but yeah, I think that's yeah, that's a track I do love. Driven a few. Donington Park was a great one when I drove that one. That was good.
Right on. And you, Michi?
Well, we're talking about sim racing or real racing.
Oh, I don't care. What's your favorite?
Yeah,
man?
I mean, sim racing wise, there's not really a track that's been my favorite. There is a number of tracks like Silverstone, Spa, North Slope, Malaysia. I like South Korea track, the Yeongam circuit that was built a couple of years ago to be raced in 2 times in Formula 1. Embarrassing. Anyway, and car wise, I'm definitely an open wheeler car guy, so Formula 1. Probably it's this year's type of Formula 1 since they have a massive grip. Just by watching them, they look sharp, they look aggressive, they look so good. It should have fitted a V10 engine though, but that's a different topic.
Of course, awesome. Come this time next year, we'll all say Zakspeed's 2018.
There you go.
They'll rejoin Formula 1.
There you go. There you go. All right, so anything else that we need to know about Avid Chronic Racing and the future for your drivers and team?
Well, definitely. Definitely you guys should follow our social media, our Facebook, our YouTube, our Twitter, Instagram. We literally got everything, and spread and share every news we got. Also, hand in your email address if you want to be part of the press mailer. Just contact me personal on the Facebook, contact the team on avidchronicracing.com, on our website. Be around, check out social media, talk to Mike, talk to me, talk to the other team owners, approach the drivers if you want to know anything. And all I can say, towards Christmas, New Year, and until February, follow us closely to really see what we're going to really see who joins us. Definitely some interesting personnel still to talk about. Some contracts not quite signed yet, but on a good way to. So there will be interesting stuff to come. And then I think Mike can do the rest of the forecast.
Well, and equally, if you're a driver as well watching this and you think I'm quite good, I wouldn't mind getting a part of that. Get in contact. We've got an academy as well with setup guides, and we can really help people through that as well, building up. So there is different skill levels you can come in at. Longer term, it's something that we can work with and get involved. That's the thing. It's more just having fun with sim racing, and if you're at the top level racing for Zakspeed, or if you're just starting out and have just bought yourself a Logitech GT wheel, then there is a place for you somewhere in sim racing, in one of the sims somewhere, and we'd love to speak to you.
Excellent. Well, congratulations, you guys, on joining forces and creating what's going to be one of the best teams in 2018. And I wish you guys all the best of luck in all the different challenges and disciplines that you go after.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So there you have it, the new face of sim racing for 2018. Teams joining forces, creating super teams, going after the esport competitions and those super pride competitions out there in sim racing. But you can see things are going to be different in the future than they've been in the past. This is the Simpit. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.